What's up guys, so today is my attempt to making the dopest coffee table in my neighborhood. And although I left a few things off the list, I covered the basics of what I wanted in here. From the pop-up outlet to the large open area down to the small storage. And even the remote control motorized secret compartment. And I did this to challenge my design skills and also hide this projector. Today's video is sponsored by LG and I'm going to be incorporating their 4K Ultra HD projector right into my coffee table. Now I don't have the space to be able to display it, but you can get up to a 150-inch screen of awesomeness. And while the laser light source is rated at 2500 looms, it's also rated at 20,000 hours of lamp life. Now there's a great chance that this actually just looks complicated, but anything is possible if you take it a step at a time. Let me show you how I built this. For this project, I'm going to be using 2 sheets of 4x8 premium white face plywood. 4x8 sheets of plywood are really tough to work with, so I find it easier to cut those down with a circular saw, then take them over to the table saw to cut them at the final dimensions. To begin the assembly, I'm going to build this book area that's on one end of the coffee table. I now have the 2 sides, back and bottom, done, so it's time to attach the top. This entire piece is going to be part of the moving section that's on the coffee table. And as usual, I added a few nails to hold everything together. Now I can add the screws. Next, I'll attach the 2 sides, and these are not going to get any screws in them. These are going to be visible. So worst case, I just put in a few nails and that should be easier to cover. And finally I can put the top on. So I'm going to add a few nails, put clamps on it, set that off to the side, and then I'll start the other section of the coffee table. To make things quick and simple, I'm going to use pocket hole joinery to connect the fixed end of the coffee table. With the side being done, I can now put on the inside panel, and this should hide the pocket holes. The double layer plywood definitely add more weight, but this is the look I was going for. Aesthetically, I like the thickness of that. After adding a panel to the bottom to thicken that section up, I then drilled a couple pocket holes on the inside of that. I placed the divider in place, then secured that with pocket hole screws. Next thing I had to do was cut the support for the drawer slides. I installed the first part of the support, lining it up with the scribe line. Next I installed pocket hole screws to secure this piece down. Once I got to this lower end, I used the nail gun to secure these in place. Screws could have easily been used as well. I repeated the same thing for the opposite side, and then it was on to the next thing. I attached the lower level of the top using pocket hole screws, keeping the hole facing up. Finally, I attached the upper and secured that down. Along the top, I'm going to add an angled piece, and this should give it a modern look. My goal is to go about things the easiest way. I used a tapered piece, then marked it onto the piece of wood. Turned out that was about a 10-degree angle. So once I cut that, it lined up perfectly. The ends of those need to also be cut at an angle so that it can line up with the back and the front of that tapered piece. For the time being, I'm going to set that to the side, and then I'm going to cut a hole in the bottom, which is going to be inside this pocket in the coffee table. There's going to be a pull-up push down outlet here, and I need access to the power cord. Now one thing to keep in mind is that the top of this hole, it needs to be below the top part of the rails for the drawer slides. And with that out of the way, I can now add the divider. I made sure to put the pocket holes on the inside of the panel. This way there'll be no holes to patch. After confirming that everything lines up, I can attach the top by applying wood glue and shooting in a few nails. And finally, I'm going to attach the widest panel on the far end. Now I didn't really plan this part out, so I'm glad I took this thing a step at a time. I drilled out the hole here, which is going to have the push down outlet. Thankfully I did a quick test fit just to make sure that this actually works. So this is where I ran into a problem. If I tighten this up now, I will not be able to get access to this later, nor if I needed to put it in later, I would not be able to do it then. So the fix to this is to add an access panel on the inside. And one of the quickest and cleanest ways to cut open a hole like this is using the oscillating tool. I'm going to add a double gain cut-in ring here. This way I can put up a blank plate. Keep in mind that this hole needs to be big enough so that you can pass the plastic nut through to fit onto the push down electrical outlet. And with that problem being resolved, I can now close off this end. When it comes to tackling the drawer slides, this is when things got a little bit complicated. The good thing is I was prepared and I had enough hardware on hand to figure this out. When I first thought this through, I had 18-inch tracks which I was going to use. Then I found these 12-inch tracks. These were brand new, tried them, it didn't work. Once the drawer extended, it dropped. Now I actually ran into a lot of alignment issues, and I even cut holes here in the side so I can take off the drawer slides because I put them in a spot that I couldn't access the release pins. I wasted a lot of time trying to figure these out, and what really saved me was two things. I used these super heavy duty drawer slides. I think these are rated at like 500 pounds. And while I was fighting with the alignment, I also realized that I had an issue here where this panel out of the entire build was off. I do believe this issue came from when I was gluing up the panels and I didn't check for squaring. Now back to the drawer slides. I mentioned that there was two parts to the solution, and this was one of them. These pieces would prevent the drawer from dropping down, keeping it the same height as the other side, which aesthetically make it look good. These pieces will need to be added to the side, and with those in the way, I have to relocate the drawer slides. I salvaged these from an audio video rack a while back, and I'm so glad I held on to these because man, they were a lifesaver. And after spending some quality time with this build, I think you can use some regular heavy duty slides, and you'd probably have to just create your own bracket out of wood, maybe some L pieces, and just get the same kind of concept that I have going on here. The wood strip added to the sliding section is going to be acting in tandem with the slides. So these things are going to work together, and the slide is going to prevent that from running off the track, and then the wood pieces is going to prevent the drawer from dropping. And finally, I need to connect the drawer slides to the moving section. So throughout this project, I had been thinking about this bowed out section, and I decided not to fix it. What I am going to do is sand it down so that it's the same level as the piece that's next to it. Finally, I added trim going around the open face of the pull-out section. I then went on to just sanding the entire coffee table. This way I can get it prepped up and ready for painting. And with all the sanding being done, I now took a warm rag and I wiped down the entire coffee table just to clear all the dust off. So initially I was going to wrap this entire coffee table with vinyl, but I wasn't confident I had enough. I decided that I'm just going to paint the entire thing and just wrap a small section with vinyl. Being that I have a lot of open ends from the plywood, I'm going to use Bondo as a filler. You should only mix what you can apply within a 3-minute time period. It took a lot of sanding to get back to a smooth stage. Now you can take a work light to go around and find locations that need touch up like here. I'm assuming that this coffee table is going to get a lot of traffic, so I want to make sure that I make it easy to clean, and I'm going to use an oil-based paint. But before I can apply the paint, I'm going to put on a primer sealer. As a way to make the coffee table stand out, I'm going to wrap a section of it in vinyl. Now I do like that you can feel the raised textures on here and not such a smooth finish. Now I did pick up some experience from my last vinyl project, but I'm still not an expert, or nor would I consider myself one, and this project was a little more on the complicated side, but I think if you have a little patience you can work out the kinks. If you guys want to see me do a video where I dial in and I show a complete step-by-step on the process I'm taking to install these, let me know and I'll do a video in the future on that. My initial thought was to just do the side and also the top, but once I looked at it more and more, I felt like it could stand out a bit more, and I actually like that I went with that direction because I do feel like it adds more depth to it. As a way to make the coffee table move, I use an actuator. There may be a few ways to go about this, but here's what worked for me. I attached a mounting bracket to a piece of metal plate. I drilled a few custom holes so I could mount that and then attach the plate to the moving section of the coffee table. If this part seems a bit complicated to take in, there will be a detailed set of drawings that goes along with this as well, but also there will be a video that goes a bit more in depth on how the actuator works in here along with the electronic side. After putting in the actuator, I had to do a quick test fit just to make sure that it works and moves the way I was hoping for. At this point, I can now attach that piece to the coffee table. The final setup for the actuator will have a nut and bolt, and to me that's key. If the actuator fails, I can then remove the nut and then pop the bolt up. At that point, I'll be able to manually open up the coffee table. After installing the legs, it was on to wiring up the receiver to control the actuator. I do have a set of plans for the hookup diagram on this circuitry, but as mentioned, stay tuned and I'll have a follow-up video to this that go into greater detail. I drilled out a hole that was big enough to pass the power cable through. Next, I installed the pop-up outlet, which was a really nice touch to this build. I'm just saying, who wouldn't like a coffee table that you can charge your laptop, phone, or any other devices while you're sitting on a sofa? It's kind of hard to do a project like this and not factor in the LEDs. I used the drill to twist up 2 conductors that's going to be powering the LEDs. Since I'm using a 4-channel RF receiver, there's 2 available channels and I'm going to use one of them to control the LED. I then installed the LED channel and placed the strip inside. To hide all the wires and connection in the coffee table, I ended up using magnetic catch as a way to hold down this access cover. Now that this part is taken care of, it's on to installing the cutting ring. To truly make this a custom piece, I cannot just put a blank plate up here and call it done. I have to make it blend in, and that means wrapping it with vinyl. I got to admit that I love the way this plate came out and I'm starting to feel like I'm getting the hang of this. And that pretty much wraps this one up, so let's take a quick tour and get a quick rundown on my new setup, which includes the LG 4K projector. Now this projector is quite impressive on its own, but it's also one of the reasons why this design came about because of the size and its shape. Now I wanted to put this in an enclosed environment so when it's not in use, it's out of sight. But when I want to use it, I can bring it out in style. This 4K Ultra HD projector has 8.3 million pixels, which is quite impressive. And that means that this can deliver some clean, crisp image. This is truly a versatile setup that allows you to set this up just about anywhere. Either you want to put it on a countertop, floor, ceiling mounted, in a dedicated media room, or in a really cool coffee table like this one. There's a lot to like about this projector, including the minor details like the handle, which makes it easy to carry, and also the built-in quarter reel, which is pretty slick. And even though I don't have a projector screen, at least not yet, I can totally utilize the wall or even the ceiling. I'm actually using the ceiling right now as I'm setting up the projector for the first time. Now I know there's a lot of projector users out there, and there's also a lot that don't actually use a projector. And just to give you an idea, you can actually look at this as a TV that you just shoot out to a screen or a wall. And you pretty much have the standard input output from a cable to optical out, USB to HDMI, and finally a LAN port. And obviously you can't have all those sources with you wherever you go, so LG also have the smart TV application built right in so you can get out to all your favorite applications. Although the projector is a complete setup in itself, the built-in audio sounds great. However, if this is going to be my movie night setup, I gotta have some additional sound so I can have a complete surround sound. So I'm rocking the SK10Y LG soundbar and subwoofer. Everything is completely wireless, so all the sound is being transmitted over Bluetooth. On top of that, you have the built-in Meridian technology that delivers high quality and perfectly balanced sound. And that's without distortion, of course. So to get that theater-like surround sound, I have the SPK8 for my rear speaker solution, which has Dolby Atmos to put you in the middle of the action. Now this is not the room I'm gonna set everything up in, but being that this is a room that has ambient light around it and also it's open space, the sound, the quality of everything is quite promising. If you want to find more details on this build, then be sure to check out the video description. Also, if you enjoyed this project and you want to see more dope stuff like this, then I'm going to ask you guys to drop some comment down below, challenge me, let me know what you want to see next. And if this video hit 50,000 likes, then I will pick one or a couple of those ideas and bring it to life. So if you'd like to further support what I do, you can do so by going to patreon.com/DIY creators. And I'm going to do a follow-up video to share all the little details that I couldn't necessarily pack into this video. So over the next couple days, if you have some questions and you need them answered, go ahead and drop them down below and I'll do my best to incorporate them in that video. And if you're new here, I'm Glenn and welcome to my channel. And before you take off, do you guys solid and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell notification, and until next time, I'll see you then.